The applause was thunderous, but it wasn't for truth. It was for arrogance. Inside Harvard's grand auditorium, the crowd rose to its feet as Professor Christopher Brown took the stage. A man known not for humility, but for his biting mockery of faith, especially Christianity. His lectures weren't just academic. They were performances where believers were punchlines and God was a myth to be ridiculed. But this time, something was different. In the middle of the crowd sat Karoline Leavitt, not a student, not an outsider, but the 27-year-old White House press secretary and a woman of unshakable conviction. No cameras, no podium, just her, quietly watching, patiently waiting. Professor Brown scanned the room, then smirked. "Let's get straight to the point," he said, his tone dripping with contempt. "People still believing in Jesus in 2025? That's not faith. That's fantasy." The audience laughed. A few even cheered. But then, Karoline stood. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't flinch. What she said next wasn't just powerful. It was devastatingly brilliant. A defense of faith so direct, so sharp, and so undeniable, the room fell silent. Professor Brown, a man who lived for the last word, had nothing left to say. It was a moment that shook the room and sparked a national conversation. Before we dive into exactly what happened and why Karoline's words are still echoing beyond those ivy-covered walls, tell us where you're watching from and make sure to hit subscribe, because this is a moment you'll want to see with your own eyes. Let's get started with the Grand Hall at Yale University was packed to the brim, its vaulted ceilings echoing the excited chatter of hundreds of students, professors, and journalists, all gathered in eager anticipation. The prestigious auditorium, steeped in intellectual history, was a fitting stage for the man who strode confidently toward the podium. Professor Jonathan Merrick, a respected figure whose reputation for outspoken atheism preceded him, adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat with deliberate drama. His lectures were legendary, notorious even, for challenging, often ruthlessly, the traditional values many Americans still held dear. "Thank you," Merrick began, voice dripping with practiced charm, his piercing eyes scanning the room. "Tonight, we gather in this esteemed institution to confront one of society's most persistent myths, religion, particularly the outdated narratives of Christianity." A wave of murmurs rippled through the audience, some intrigued, others already bracing for what was to come. Merrick continued with an air of intellectual superiority. "Faith, especially faith in figures like Jesus Christ, is nothing more than humanity's comfort blanket, invented to escape the fear of reality. Today, my friends, we must rip that blanket away." At those words, scattered applause arose among a section of enthusiastic students, while older members of the audience exchanged wary glances, sensing the battle lines forming. In a cozy home hundreds of miles away in rural Indiana, Elizabeth Thompson, an elderly widow, sat in her worn but comfortable armchair. Her husband's cherished old Bible rested tenderly in her hands, pages thin with use, margins crowded with handwritten notes of devotion. She watched Merrick's broadcasted lecture on her small television, her gentle eyes misting over with sorrow. "Why do they mock what gives us hope?" she whispered softly, her voice trembling with quiet hurt. Her frail fingers brushed the Bible lovingly, memories flooding her mind. Memories of love, loss, strength, and comfort drawn from a lifetime of faith. Back at Yale, Merrick paused dramatically, his gaze falling pointedly on a figure quietly seated among the attendees, Karoline Leavitt, the young and articulate White House press secretary. The professor's eyes sparked with mischief and challenge as he addressed her directly. "Miss Leavitt," he said with exaggerated courtesy, "we're delighted to have you here. But tell us, as someone affiliated so prominently with an administration that wears its religious affiliations like badges of honor, do you genuinely believe these archaic myths, or is it merely a convenient political tool?" Every head turned towards Karoline. Her calm expression didn't falter as a heavy silence filled the room, the question hanging provocatively in the air. Karoline felt hundreds of eyes drilling into her, yet she remained poised, her serene expression revealing nothing of the storm that brewed beneath her composed exterior. She knew Merrick was baiting her, publicly attempting to diminish her convictions, but she had faced far harsher storms and wasn't easily rattled. "I'm here to listen and learn, Professor," Karoline replied softly but confidently, a small, composed smile touching her lips. Her calm demeanor only seemed to provoke Merrick more, igniting his eagerness for confrontation. "Listen and learn," Merrick mocked lightly, eliciting chuckles from some of the younger attendees. "Very diplomatic. Let's hope you're sincere." He turned away smugly, convinced he'd secured the upper hand, unaware he'd awakened something profound in Karoline, something she was prepared to defend passionately. Professor Merrick continued his lecture with increased zeal, his voice resonating dramatically through the grand auditorium. Behind him, a large screen displayed controversial slides mocking religious narratives with cartoonish depictions of biblical scenes, purposely designed to provoke and ridicule. "Science," Merrick proclaimed boldly, tapping the podium emphatically, "has provided us irrefutable evidence that faith is inversely correlated with intelligence. Study after study shows religious believers lag behind their secular counterparts intellectually." He paused, his voice dropping conspiratorially. "Faith is a comfortable illusion, but intellect demands we cast aside comforting falsehoods and confront reality head-on." Laughter rippled through sections of the youthful crowd, enthralled by his audacious assertions. Yet there was palpable discomfort, particularly among older attendees, who shifted uneasily in their seats, faces tight with indignation and sorrow. From her home, Elizabeth Thompson felt her heart ache with indignation. Her husband's legacy, his unwavering faith even in his final, painful days, was being mocked publicly. The cruel laughter from the television seemed to pierce her heart, a reminder of how society had shifted, growing dismissive and disdainful toward the values she cherished deeply. Back at Yale, Merrick confidently turned his attention back to Karoline, clearly reveling in the opportunity to further demean her before a live audience and national viewers. "Miss Leavitt," Merrick sneered openly now, stepping out from behind his lectern and approaching the edge of the stage. "As the voice of an administration that touts its Christian values as policy guidelines, how do you reconcile your supposed commitment to truth with your adherence to such backward superstitions? Isn't it hypocritical to claim to speak truth in politics while simultaneously peddling myths?" His voice dripped disdain, each word designed to publicly humiliate and isolate her. Eyes turned to Karoline once more, the auditorium buzzing with tension, phones raised discreetly, capturing the moment. Karoline took a slow, steady breath, remaining seated but unwavering in her posture. She felt the gravity of the situation deeply, knowing her response would not only define her, but represent millions watching silently from their homes. Those like Elizabeth Thompson, whose faith was a source of solace, strength, and identity. "Professor Merrick," Karoline began softly yet powerfully, "you label faith as a backward superstition, dismissing it entirely as a political tool. Yet you ignore that faith has consistently been a catalyst for profound compassion, resilience, and moral strength throughout history." Her voice gained strength and clarity, resonating with sincerity. "My faith is not a political tool. It's the foundation of my principles. It informs compassion and provides the moral compass guiding every action I take, both personally and professionally. To mock it is to misunderstand the very essence of human dignity and the diversity of experience that makes America great." A hush enveloped the auditorium, Merrick momentarily stunned by the eloquence and composure of her response. Around the nation, elderly viewers watching at home felt tears prick their eyes, gratitude swelling in their hearts for someone who finally articulated their deeply held feelings so powerfully and publicly. Yet Merrick quickly regained his confidence, his smirk returning. "Charming rhetoric, Miss Leavitt, but empty words nonetheless. Studies, real data, show faith is an intellectual failing, nothing more." A ripple of nervous laughter once again swept through the room, but it was weaker this time, tinged with uncertainty. Many were moved by Karoline's sincere, heartfelt defense. The battle lines were drawn clearly now, the tension tangible, and Karoline sat ready, knowing the real debate was about to begin, one that would resonate far beyond the walls of the auditorium, affecting hearts and minds across the country. And Karoline's powerful rebuttal has coming. Karoline rose from her seat with graceful confidence, her presence immediately capturing the auditorium's attention. Her voice was clear, steady, and tinged with genuine sincerity as she spoke directly to Professor Merrick, but also addressing everyone listening near and far. Professor Merrick, you've presented faith as intellectually inferior, yet you ignore the countless brilliant minds throughout history whose profound intellect was matched by their deep faith. The audience listened intently, sensing the gravity of her words. Karoline continued, her voice gaining momentum. Consider Francis Collins, who led the groundbreaking Human Genome Project, a man whose scientific achievements changed modern medicine forever. Yet Dr. Collins is deeply devoted to his Christian faith. He believes that science and faith illuminate each other, each enriching our understanding of existence. Are we prepared to label him intellectually deficient, Professor? Or perhaps your selective reasoning blinds you to the truth? Merrick shifted uncomfortably at the podium, clearly unprepared for such a calmly delivered yet powerful challenge. Karoline paused briefly, allowing her words to resonate. Albert Einstein himself once expressed admiration for the structure of the universe that science unveils, but also noted that science without religion is lame, religion without science is blind. Were Einstein's views also intellectually backward? A murmur of appreciation spread through the audience, older viewers at home nodding thoughtfully. Elizabeth Thompson leaned closer to her television, her heart swelling with pride and gratitude. Karoline's tone softened, her gaze reflective. Allow me to share something personal. My grandmother was one of the most intelligent and compassionate people I've ever known. She lived through tremendous hardships, the Great Depression, wars, family tragedies. Her faith wasn't blind superstition. It was her strength, her resilience. It gave her hope in the darkest of times and guided her through life's complexities. Her voice grew gentle, almost reverent. When my family faced crises, illnesses, financial struggles, it was her unwavering faith that kept us going. It was faith that taught me the importance of compassion, humility, and the relentless pursuit of truth. Can we truly dismiss such powerful, life-sustaining belief as merely ignorance? Across America, elderly viewers felt deeply connected to Karoline's words, recalling their own experiences of faith, carrying them through personal trials. The sincerity of her narrative touched hearts, bridging generational divides. Karoline turned her attention fully back to Merrick, her voice now firm but respectful. Professor Merrick, true intellectual inquiry involves open-minded exploration, not dismissive arrogance. You ridicule faith as incompatible with reason, yet you selectively ignore evidence contradicting your position. Isn't true intellectual humility admitting we don't hold all answers? Her challenge hung in the air powerfully, earning spontaneous applause from sections of the audience. Merrick's confidence visibly faltered, the smugness fading from his face as Karoline's dignified rebuttal dismantled his arguments. Now Professor Merrick, clearly shaken, attempted to respond, his voice less certain, more defensive. Miss Leavitt, emotional anecdotes are not evidence. Faith and science are fundamentally incompatible. One relies on evidence, the other on blind belief. Karoline calmly countered, her composure unwavering. Professor, science itself recognizes its limitations. It thrives precisely because it acknowledges gaps in understanding. Questions unanswered, mysteries unsolved. Faith does not replace science. It complements it, providing hope and meaning where empirical data falls short. Merrick's agitation grew visible as Karoline continued methodically addressing his earlier claims. You ridicule religious narratives, yet ignore their profound moral frameworks underpinning civilizations. Does science alone teach us compassion, sacrifice, or unconditional love? Can quantum physics or evolutionary biology alone inspire acts of heroism and kindness we've seen throughout human history? His mouth opened and closed, visibly struggling to respond coherently. Karoline's calm yet compelling delivery was undeniably powerful, spotlighting Merrick's flawed reasoning. Elderly viewers at home were deeply moved, their eyes brimming with tears of validation and gratitude. Elizabeth Thompson whispered, her voice trembling, "Thank you, Karoline. You've spoken for all of us." Online, emotional testimonials quickly surfaced. Veterans, community leaders, and elderly citizens rallied behind Karoline, expressing admiration and heartfelt thanks for her courageous defense of faith and dignity. One elderly man shared a moving video online. Karoline speaks for us. Faith isn't weakness, it's our greatest strength. Back in the auditorium, Merrick visibly unraveled, his voice losing clarity, becoming more fragmented. Miss Leavitt, you misunderstand me. Science provides concrete answers. Faith offers illusions. We can't rely on fairy tales. Karoline remained composed, responding with measured clarity. Professor, faith isn't about fairy tales. It's about purpose and understanding beyond empirical observation. It's about confronting life's greatest mysteries and uncertainties with humility, acknowledging our human limitations. Her voice softened, conveying genuine compassion. Perhaps your hostility stems from misunderstanding, Professor. True strength, true intelligence, lies not in dismissing beliefs different from our own, but in the courage to explore them honestly. Isn't openness to possibility the heart of both scientific and spiritual exploration? The auditorium broke into heartfelt applause, the sound of respect and affirmation filling the hall. Merrick stood speechless, pride and arrogance visibly crumbling under Karoline's sincere, well-reasoned approach. Karoline finished gently, addressing the silent professor directly. Professor Merrick, faith and reason are partners, not opponents. When science reaches its edge, faith guides us further, offering hope and understanding in the face of life's deepest uncertainties. I invite you to consider this not as defeat, but as an opportunity to truly expand your intellectual horizon. The audience erupted once more. Elderly viewers nationwide feeling deeply validated, their dignity restored, their voices finally represented. Professor Merrick stepped back, humbled and silent, his composure fully shattered. Karoline stood quietly, the embodiment of dignity and moral courage. Her words had not merely won a debate, they had rekindled hope, uniting countless Americans in a shared affirmation of faith's enduring power. Professor Merrick, visibly shaken, grasped the podium as if to steady himself. His confident demeanor was now reduced to uncertainty and vulnerability. The auditorium, once filled with his commanding presence, now echoed with an uncomfortable silence, awaiting his response. Karoline stood patiently, her composure unbroken, eyes filled with compassion rather than triumph. Merrick finally spoke, his voice strained and barely audible. You've raised valid questions, Miss Leavitt. Science indeed does not have all the answers. Not yet. He hesitated, visibly struggling with each word. There are questions about consciousness, morality, and meaning that we still cannot fully comprehend. Perhaps I've been too dismissive. The audience listened in stunned silence, many visibly moved by the honesty and humility in Merrick's admission. Elderly viewers at home, witnessing this moment through tear-filled eyes, experienced a profound sense of validation and hope. Elizabeth Thompson, clutching her late husband's Bible tightly, whispered emotionally, "Karoline gave dignity back to our faith. She's restored our voice." Karoline nodded respectfully at Merrick's concession, stepping forward gently to speak again. Professor Merrick, your humility today demonstrates exactly why we need both faith and reason. Each guides the other. Faith inspires our search for understanding, and science deepens our appreciation of creation. They are not opposing forces, but partners in our endless pursuit of truth. Applause erupted spontaneously, heartfelt and powerful, spreading from the auditorium across homes nationwide. Elderly citizens moved deeply, openly wept, applauded, and expressed heartfelt gratitude for Karoline's courage and wisdom. Powerful testimonials emerged from across the country. Veterans, elders, faith leaders, and ordinary citizens shared messages on social media, their voices unified in admiration for Karoline's articulate defense of faith. A retired veteran posted emotionally, "Today, Karoline reminded America that faith gives us strength. She speaks for us." The moment resonated deeply, not just as a personal victory for Karoline, but as a broader cultural reaffirmation of the dignity of faith in American life. The unity, hope, and respect evident in the audience's reaction spread swiftly, bridging divides, healing wounds, and sparking renewed conversations about faith, reason, and the essence of humanity. Conclusion: light beyond arrogance. Days later, Karoline addressed the nation from her humble office, the room softly lit and filled with warmth and sincerity. Her voice was gentle but resolute, her eyes reflecting genuine emotion as she spoke directly into the camera. Friends, faith does not compete with reason, it enriches it. Science guides us through the wonders of the observable world. But when science reaches its limits, faith carries us further. Faith comforts, strengthens, and provides purpose. It reminds us of our humanity and calls us to humility, kindness, and compassion. As her message broadcasted, heartfelt letters from older Americans poured into her office. Karoline, deeply touched, read each one carefully, tears of gratitude filling her eyes as she absorbed their words. Letters shared stories of renewed pride in their beliefs, expressed hope in a society often dismissive of traditional values, and thanked Karoline profoundly for standing strong on their behalf. One handwritten note read, "Karoline, your courage and clarity have restored my pride in our faith. After years of feeling silenced, you've given our voice back." Another elderly couple wrote, "Watching you stand up to ridicule and defend faith with dignity made us feel proud again to believe openly in a world that often mocks us. Thank you for being our voice." Karoline, visibly moved by these heartfelt testimonies, addressed her viewers once more, softly yet powerfully. Your beliefs matter. Your voice matters. Today we have reminded the world that faith and reason illuminate each other. We are stronger together, unified in our shared humanity and our quest for truth. I invite you, stand with us, subscribe, share your stories, and help uphold a world where faith and reason guide us side by side. The final image was of Karoline, surrounded by stacks of heartfelt letters, embodying humility, strength, and genuine compassion. The screen faded gently, leaving viewers with renewed hope, dignity, and inspiration to share their own stories courageously, knowing their voices had finally been heard.